For the most part, the people of the Torres Strait were easily conquered by the new beliefs. Even the smallest community now has at least one Christian church, some of them barely different from the originals. Simple structures with walls of woven palm fronds built without a floor on the beachfront sand. A religious service on the islands is recognisable as the same Christianity practised in the outside world, but with exotic touches adapted from the old island cult worship. This church is the Anglican Cathedral, built as a memorial to 133 people killed in the 1890 shipwreck of the Quetta, one of the worst maritime disasters in Australian history. That was when Thursday Island was off limits to natives. Anything in the town, including churches, was built for whites only. Although the cathedral is now open to all races, today it's the islanders who seem to have held on to the religion more strongly than the Europeans who imposed it on them in the first place. Another place where they've absorbed island custom into Christianity is the cemetery. Expensive tombstones were a natural replacement for ancient burial rites, where graves were also heavily decorated, often with the skulls of enemies. The old ways demanded graves be hidden until grieving was over. Today, they unwrap the grave in what they call tombstone openings, where families can spend as much as $30,000 on a celebration. The monuments are like history books, telling as much about the Torres Strait as they do about the lives of the individuals. Many tell of the pearling days when the straits were opened up to the world. The rewards were high, but so was the cost in human lives. Uncounted islanders were slaughtered when they got in the pearlers' way, and more than 1,000 divers died from the bends, accidents and shark attacks. They included hundreds of Japanese, more than half under the age of 21. Right up to the 1950s, sailing luggers were used in a pearl rush that rivaled the race for gold on the mainland. The prize was not so much the pearls themselves, only 1 in 1,000 oysters contained a gem. The real profit came from the shell, prized for cutting into buttons, jewellery, furniture decoration, and just about any ornament you could think of. The wealth they harvested from the sea turned Thursday Island into a crowded town of more than 30,000 people. But the industry and the lugger fleet suddenly became useless when the invention of plastic buttons made pearl shell virtually obsolete. Alf Mills used to skipper one of the few luggers left on Thursday Island. He remembers well the days when he'd put on heavy diving suits that could also be death traps that claimed hundreds of lives in extremely deep water.
From 3 fathoms to 60 fathoms.
60 fathoms, 360 feet down. What are the conditions like, dark or light?
No, it's pretty clear down there. Well, down the deep seems to be clear all the time. You're only affected by strong tides there.
Alf tells how he saw divers swept by those tides into huge bommies, pinnacles of coral the size of a 6-story building.
What can happen if you get tangled up?
The only best thing is to throw the element away and just try to swim up slowly. As many of them survived like that.
Did many of them die like that?
Oh, plenty of died. Didn't come up.
Friends of yours?
Yeah.
The end of large-scale pearling left the Torres Strait and Thursday Island in a slump that has lasted 30 years so far. The economy of the whole area now depends on government spending. The people are dissatisfied with what they receive, and many are pressing for independence. It's a movement that's grown out of feelings of neglect, of resentment over what's been done to their people and culture in the past, of comparing their lack of prosperity with the rest of Australia. And if they want a truly uncomfortable comparison, these people of the far northeast can look to Australia's far northwest. The town of Broome, with a past so like Thursday Island, is thriving. And so is the business of producing pearls. Pearls grown in underwater farms around Broome. Many will be sold to traders and jewellers around the world, but some remain here to be made into fine jewellery for the Australian market. The pearl farmers, traders and jewellers of Broome claim the quality of their product is unbeatable, the best in the world. Their gems have succeeded in keeping the town alive while other pearling centres have faded away. The streets of what used to be old Chinatown have turned into a thriving town heart. Broome is a place full of character with its distinctive local architecture and a heritage that came from around the world. It's a place where the prosperity is obvious and where the foundation of the wealth is gratefully remembered. One of the last remaining pearling luggers has been moved to one of the parks to stand alongside statues of the pioneers who made themselves and the town of Broome rich from the sea. The dangers are remembered at an old compression chamber. It saved hundreds of divers from an agonising death with the bends before being pensioned off as a memorial to the old days. The sheds that once stored the precious mother-of-pearl shell that was so dangerous to harvest are now devoted to the cultured pearl. These gems are the symbol of Broome, and the successful farmers and traders seem to have an almost casual attitude to the riches they extract from the sea. Ever since culturing gave this old industry a new face, the skills of the jeweller and the businessman have become as important as those of the diver.
Well, I think we're looking at about $60,000 to $70,000 worth of pearls. So I suppose, yes, you have a pearl like this, which would be $1,000.
David Jones is one of the experts who assesses the value of Broome's glistening harvest. It's no simple business, and collecting enough pearls for an average string can take a long time.
What I'm doing is grading them in shape, size, colour and lustre. A small farm like ours could take 5 years to put a very nice strand of pearls together, mainly because nature just does not bend its way to suit the farmer.
The tropical waters that once provided 3/4 of the world's mother-of-pearl is now an underwater farm. Aluminium speedboats have replaced the wooden sailing luggers. Where divers once walked through dangerous deep water with helmets, suits and heavily weighted boots, today they work in shallow bays with modern lightweight gear. Shells gathered from the few remaining places where they weren't over-collected are growing cultured pearls in water so rich in nutrients that it's like swimming and working in seafood soup. Every one of these pearl oysters has been seeded with a little ball made from shell, and the farmer tends his crop waiting for a pearl to grow around the seed. It takes 2 years before they reach the stage where the pearl is of any value, and along the way they have their failures. The blindfold on skipper Grant Streeter has no sinister meaning. He's conditioning his eyes for the darkness of an X-ray machine to check that oysters in the farm are doing their job and actually growing a pearl.
Yes. Yes. No.
X-rays take the guesswork and maybe some of the romance out of pearling. The rejects are seeded again, provided the oyster is good and healthy. Those where a pearl is detected go back down to the bottom until they've been there long enough to produce a stone that's the world's only gem grown by a living creature. The pearlers of Broome are now worried that their livelihood could be under threat. Trawlers have started working close to the pearl beds. To drive home their fears, they've recorded a trawl net in action. They say terrible damage like this could be done to their underwater farms by accident, or even deliberately. They argue that evidence like this supports a powerful case for keeping any trawlers completely out of the Broome area. Broome was built on pearls, and it was always a one-business town, until very recently when a visiting British lord decided the place had potential. Lord McAlpine was impressed by the distinctive local architecture which he copied to construct an elegant resort, the Cable Beach Club. Many people in Broome see his investment here as the saviour of a place that was stagnating, and he seems to be regarded as a sort of absentee patron saint of the town. His other major interest in Broome at first seems rather strange. Exotic animals and birds from around the world, in a world-class zoo that will probably never turn a profit.
Hey, come on. No jealousy. No jealousy.
The Pearl Coast Zoo was built mainly as a sort of Noah's Ark, a place where creatures from around the world can be bred in captivity as a safeguard against extinction.
Yeah, this is Olive. Yeah, she's a hand-raised blackback, otherwise known as an Indian antelope. I don't want her to be like this. I'd rather her be with the herd.
Why is that?
Well, because she's not performing normally. You know, she's humanised. But when she's only young, when she's a bit more sexually mature, she should integrate with the herd a bit more.
If disease, natural disaster, or man's blunders wipes out a species in its homeland, the Pearl Coast Zoo will be a starting point for repopulating the wild. African animals in the bush isn't the only oddity around Broome. The Sun Picture Garden is the oldest open-air cinema in the world. It's been showing movies without a break since 1916. And a close look at the place reveals there hasn't been much change since then.
I guess there's a few disadvantages in open-air theatres. There are no matinees. You've got to wait till the sun goes down. And over the fence, the neighbours are mowing the lawn. I'm a little early, I guess, but at least I've got a good seat.
During our visit, one of the old movies that used to play here when Sun Pictures first opened its doors was being screened again for the great-grandchildren of the original patrons. A delightful place, and even being on the airport flight path seems to add a certain something to the movie.
Walk up, Wundidi here. Walk up.
Down on the burning sands, Abdul, the camel driver, welcomes the cool of late afternoon, leading customers on the sunset ride along Cable Beach. And the name really is Abdul.
I became a Muslim when I rode horses in Pakistan. And then I came back here and there was a bit of a thing about catching camels, you know, and exporting them. And myself and a friend, we had a look at that, but we couldn't make any money out of it. So then I'd caught, by that time I had 8 camels I'd caught. So then I walked to Broome.
From where?
From Alice, via Catherine.
After walking 1,500 kilometres, you'd think that would be enough, but not for Abdul. He's still doing it, and as far as he's concerned, driving camels is a good enough way to spend the rest of his life.
Wait! Not bad! Come on! You're not even my dog, but I'll still call you.
Inland from Broome, the remote Kimberley region is as rugged and empty as any part of the world. Visitors are awed by the spectacle of the sweeping landscapes, but the greatest scenic treasure in the West has been visited by only a comparative handful of people. The Bungle Bungle mountain range, a rumpled landscape of rock domes with shapes that seem either precision carved from the stone or poked up through the surface from below. A fascinating example of the craftsmanship of nature. Other parts of the range conceal a labyrinth of hidden valleys, chasms, gorges and crevices. Only a few have ever been explored, and walking through those that have been opened up is a surprising experience.
What's the correct name, Jim? Is it the Bungles or the Bungle Bungles or what?
The correct name is the Bungle Bungle without an S.
Right.
But it can be referred to as the Bungles.
So it's the Bungles or the Bungle Bungle?
That's right.
Righto. Why?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's not that Park Ranger Jim Wolfenden is ignorant about his region. It's that there are so many unanswered questions about the range.